hey, Christian, would you like to tell Charles before starting what are we doing? Because why is he here, right? Because this is important to let him know, okay, what we are doing. So go.
Well, yes. Hi, Charles.
Hello.
Basically, uh, we have two main missions. One is to teach English to the world, okay, to people as a second language, because I imagine maybe it's been your experience that knowing English is really important, right? In today's world, if you want to work, if you want to travel, it's really important. So
Yes.
that's the main goal, and the second goal is um, sharing the power of education. So we raise money to build schools.
Hmm.
Everyone here that's here in this meeting and everyone in our community has participated in that, and in fact, we've already raised almost $60,000, and
Wow.
recently they just finished building our first school in Laos, in the country of
Okay.
Laos in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's amazing. So this combination of enabling people to communicate in a very international language and promoting the power of education, that's the goal of
That's
what we're doing.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. As someone who has worked in the education field for a long time, stuff like that is also very important to me as well. I was a teacher in a music school here in Germany for 13 years, a very well-known music academy, and our language, of course, we taught in German, but international school, many people who were from different countries, and our primary language in the arts is English for the most part anyway. So I'm always interested in initiatives like that, and being a part of this amazing show that I'm in right now. Education also plays a huge part of this experience as well.
So
So,
good. So good. Okay, well, now maybe I don't know, Christian, if you agree with me, but maybe it would be nice, okay, if we can know Charles a little bit more.
Hmm.
How did he get, this new experience? Because he's been singing for about 20 years or even more than that, right? So you are a singer, professional singer. Can you share with us your experience? I mean, the journey that you've been doing.
Sure, I'd love to. First of all, to everyone in the chat, hi, Charles. Uh, Greetings from Germany. This is where I've been living for the past 32 years, and I am a professional musician, singer, and educator. And since September of 2021, I'm also a musical theater performer. I am currently starring as George Washington in the first German language, or the first non-English language production of Hamilton. And those of you who know the musical Hamilton, it is probably one of the most successful musicals of all time. It's playing currently in three different countries, in the USA and Canada, well, four countries: USA, Canada, the United Kingdom, and in Australia. And starting in October, it will be playing in Germany. It will be our production of Hamilton will be the first non-English production of the show. That means that we're doing the entire show, all the raps and everything that Hamilton is known for, in German. And what makes this such a special production is that the creator of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda, was very active in the translation of the show. So, and I'm gonna finally get to meet him at the premiere. So it's crazy. We're all very excited, and we've been rehearsing for it for a few weeks now, and it's coming along great. And our premiere is on the 6th of October. My journey into musical theater has been kind of unexpected. A lot of what I have done as a musician in Germany, I've been signed to major record companies. I've been a teacher. I'm a songwriter, um, music producer, remixer. I've worked with a lot of different artists. Um, been on television. I was on the first season of the German version of The Voice, and there's a very interesting story behind that as well, because the lady who won that season of The Voice, the very first season 12 years ago, is now one of my co-stars in Hamilton in Germany. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, so it's been a very long road here as a working musician in Germany, and lots of ups and downs, lots of very crazy things have happened. Of course, the pandemic, the COVID pandemic has hit the arts community worldwide extremely hard, and in Germany was no different. As someone who myself had COVID at the very beginning of the pandemic, before there were any vaccines, and I had a very bad case of it. I was almost in the hospital, and I wasn't gonna make it as it looked, but fortunately I got through it. And since then I've been healthy. It's taken a long time to get back to being healthy. Yeah, so that's just basically the short version of my life here. I actually met Caddy. I think we met in 21 during the second lockdown, I believe.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
she
That's
she
right.
invited me and she told me all about the chat box and told me what she was doing, and I was shocked because she's from South America, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's crazy. And so we just kind of had this nice friendship going on online. And
Yeah.
so when she asked me to do things when I have time, I try to participate and share my experience. And again, I'm also a music teacher. I teach mostly in German, but all of my colleagues and we all do everything in English. And in fact, the production of Hamilton, our teachers, our coaches, helping us prepare for the rehearsals, they are the American team from Broadway. They came extra to Germany to prepare us for the show. And the international musical director even learned German 3 years. He learned the
Oh.
language so that he could come to Germany and prepare us to open the show in Germany. I moved to a new city. I actually come from southern Germany, from Stuttgart. In September of last year, I moved to Hamburg, which is in northern Germany. And Hamburg is a very international city. Most of the people here speak very good English. It's a tourist city, of course. And so English is actually one of those. Hamburg is one of those cities in Germany where English is very common. So it's a question. It's not like if you're a tourist, if you come to Hamburg and you don't have to really worry about not being able to speak German, because pretty much everyone here speaks English. So
That's good. That's good. Okay, now maybe because these people here are so kind and they actually get to know you, right? Maybe through me, but maybe also through the media, right? Because you've been doing things on Instagram, on YouTube, right? And
yes.
some of them have very good questions to ask you.
Okay.
Don't you
Okay.
agree, Christian, that maybe we can give them the word now?
Absolutely. Yes. Um,
Okay.
this is why we do what we do. So people can have an opportunity to ask questions about things that they're interested in. So yeah, let's do that, Caddy. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
who
go.
wants to be the first? Go hit him. Okay, just say me or I and go. Okay. Come
Me.
on, don't be
I have a
shy.
question. Me.
Wait,
Okay, Charles.
Joan. Let's
I'm
say Joan
Jose.
and then Jose.
Okay, I'm Jose from
Joan.
Venezuela, but I live in
Okay,
Italy.
Jose.
Okay,
Go.
and I have a question. Why Germany and not another country? Why did you decide to go to Germany? I don't know if you said it before, but I didn't hear you. So I want to know why Germany and not another country.
Very simple. My father was in the United States Army. He was in the military and he was stationed in Germany. My first time in Germany, I was 9 years old. And Germany I grew up here. You know, Germany has become my home. Of course, I was born in America, spent a large part of my childhood in America, but I've spent my entire adult life in Germany. And it's comfortable for me. I'm very used to the German culture. I'm used to the German language now. It took a while, but again, I've been here for over 30 years. And the wonderful thing is when, you know, being a musician at the level that I work at, it allows me to travel all over the world. So I've literally been to every continent on this earth except Australia. That's the only place I haven't been yet. But
Christian, you must invite him.
You're welcome anytime, Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But yes, Germany is my home base. Like I said, I feel very comfortable here. The irony is I never thought I would live in Germany as long as I did, because once my father left the United States Army, I went back with my family for a few months. But then I got my first recording contract with a major record label, which was in Germany. And so I returned to Germany and I just decided to stay. And when I was in school, my first foreign language that I learned was actually Spanish.
Wow. Hola,
yeah.
¿cómo estás?
I've forgotten everything. I can understand a lot, but I can't speak just because I haven't had the practice. But yeah, so that's why I came to Germany, because this is where I grew up, this is my home, and this is where I spent my adult life.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay. Thank you, Jose. Now, Joan, please, and then Patricia. I think Patricia is asking also. Yeah.
Hello, Charles. Hello, Charles.
Hello.
I would like to thank you this opportunity to talk with you and to ask some questions. I know we don't have too much time, and there are several members of the group interested in ask things, so I will only bring up two questions. First, Hamilton is a musical, and where there are two different kind of working. There is a part as a singer, as a musician, and in the other hand, there is an acting work. Do you feel comfortable dealing with the acting process? And my second question, I know I have seen you release an album in the 90s, so you have a long experience like a musician, producer. What is your opinion about the current situation of the music business? How artists can make money nowadays? Two questions.
Those are very good questions. Thank you very much. I'll answer the first question. I'll try to be as brief as I can. Hamilton is a very interesting piece because unlike many other musical theater pieces in the world, Hamilton is all music. In most musical theater pieces, there's an acting scene, and then there's a music scene, and then there's another acting scene, and then there's another music scene. And Hamilton is rare because it's all music, from the first song to the last song. There are 50 songs in Hamilton, and it's all singing. So that is very easy for me, actually. What is difficult for me is more the dancing, because I have to dance a lot, and I'm not a dancer. The acting is not hard in Hamilton, simply because when you're a professional musician, when you give live concerts, I've given 150 concerts a year for the past 20 years. And when you're a performer, you have to be able to excite the crowd, to animate the crowd. And that requires a bit of acting. So I've had some training in that respect. Hamilton was actually very good for me to continue that role. Having said that, I was in another musical before Hamilton. It's a very interesting, long story, but I was just in the musical Tina, over the life of Tina Turner. Yes, and in that musical, I played Ike Turner. And Ike Turner is a very complicated character, and that was more acting. In that show, I didn't have to sing as much. I think in Tina, I sang maybe 2 songs the entire show. Everything else was acting, and I've never acted before in a professional setting like that. So that was a challenge. That was very difficult to learn how to play someone else. I'm very good playing myself, but playing other people, that's a little tricky for me. But I researched the role. I learned, very interesting things about Ike Turner that most people didn't know. And so the ability to have to play someone else's life helped me prepare for Hamilton, actually, because it helped me learn how to study characters, how to know who I'm playing, and which actually comes to question when I played George Washington in this show. So the acting is fun. It's a lot of fun. To directly answer your question, I love the acting. I never thought that I could act, but apparently I'm pretty good at it, so people like it. To your second question, I'll just be totally honest with you. I think the current state of the music business is very bad for artists. I think if I would try to get a recording contract now, it would never work. It was difficult enough in the 90s when I got started, so much so that I ended up starting my own record label and was very successful. I was more successful as an independent record label as signing with a major label. And I have many students, vocal students, who have gone on to become very successful pop stars. And they've all done it on their own. They all started their own labels. They all started their own thing. And honestly, I think it's easier nowadays to get into the business because the business is changed. Now you don't need a record label to be successful. If you can go viral with a song on TikTok or on Instagram, you can make more money than you would ever make on a major label. And I have students who are proof of that. My most famous student made her first $1 million before any record label wanted to touch her. When she first approached record labels with her music, nobody wanted to sign her because they thought her music was terrible. They thought they couldn't sell it. So she's like, you know what? I'll sell it myself. And so she did just that. And she went to radio stations and she became a viral sensation on Instagram. And then she got her first sponsoring deal with Vodafone. And from there, she became super successful. And then the record labels wanted to have her. And that's one of the major disadvantages of the business now. You can't get a recording contract until you're already successful. Yeah. And so I always tell my students, so I tell my students, so if you're successful, then why do you need a record label? So I always tell my students nowadays, step up your social media game, learn how the internet works, and you can be just as successful as if you were signed to a major label. I made more money selling 3,000 CDs 10 years ago than I made selling 300,000 CDs when I was signed to a major label.
Right. Let me tell you something. I work in a recording studio in the 90s. I am a really, really old man with many years. And in the 90s, things are completely different. Things were completely different than now. Nowadays it's really complicated. Make money in a business music world or something.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I know.
Thanks for your answer.
No problem. I think I might even be older than you, to be honest with you. But I have lots of friends who either started their own record labels, who became viral sensations and make their money through TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. And I also have students who make very much money selling their music to video game companies. That was something that was started 10 years ago, selling their music through video games. If you can get your music placed on a popular video game, then you can make a lot more money than you ever would as an artist on a major label. So there are many different, that's the beautiful thing about the business nowadays, is that it's more accessible. You can reach more people by yourself than ever. That's also the problem of the business, because it's so easy to be seen, everybody can do it. And being in the music business is not special anymore. There's a saying in English: if everything's special, then nothing is special.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
if everyone wants to be in the business and see how easy it is, then you have this culture of people who think that they're more talented than they are. And then they try to put their music out, and then it's not special anymore.
That's right.
And plus the technology is also very, very different now. My nephew, who's also a very good rapper, he's a pretty well-known recording artist in the region of the United States where he lives, in Baltimore. And his debut album, he recorded it on his iPhone.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's crazy.
He created all of the music, all of the beats, recorded the vocals. He did it all on his iPhone, released it by himself on iTunes and Spotify, and made a ridiculous amount of money. But he's also a very talented guy. So, so it's very possible. It's easier than ever to get into the business, but it's also, the competition has become a lot bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
think
much.
Nicoleta would like to ask something.
Sure.
Come on, Nicoleta, unmute yourself there.
Sorry.
There she is.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you a question about the translation in German and the huge work behind it. I saw your video when you talk about the differences in the two languages and the main reason behind the choice, which was basically to allow as much as possible to the audience to enjoy, but also to understand the story, which is not so easy. And so you wanted to allow the audience to understand also the nuances and everything. But I was fascinated about the translation, the seriousness you had in hiring basically the best songwriter in Germany, with so many records, hit songs and everything, but also the huge knowledge of all the genres of music, hip hop and dance and jazz, and the producer as well, a very famous one. And so I was reading the text of the Hamilton song. I think it's the main song, and I was wondering, because you said that you basically weighed every single word and decided which one was the best one to work best in German. And for example, there is a sentence when he says, there's a million things I haven't done. And I thought that to do in German is machen. But the song, for example, is hab mir Millionen Dinge vorgenommen. And so I was thinking about vorgenommen, and I would have said, hab mir Millionen Dinge nicht gemacht, for example. Because the syllables are the same and the space is the same, but you went, this is just an example, not about this, but I wanted to ask you how all encompassing this work was, because I'm fascinated by words and languages. And so choosing this word, for example, instead of machen, which would be very easy to understand, maybe you had a discussion, maybe not, but maybe there was a discussion, because maybe when you're singing, I don't know, the voice used is less And maybe there is a
Mhm.
gesture, there is a
Mhm.
dance move that
Mhm.
maybe, I'm sorry if
Mhm.
it's a confusing question,
No, no,
but I
no.
was.
I thank you very much for your question. I understand everything that you wanted to ask, and so I'll try to answer as best I can. First, just to be clear, I'm in the cast. I didn't have anything to do with the translation. The two men who translated the show, they've worked on this translation for
Oh,
3.5 years,
yes.
and they're two very successful songwriters. One is a musical theater songwriter, producer, and author. He writes his own musicals himself, but he's well known in Germany for translating English musicals into German. His name is Kevin Schroeder. And the other man who translated the show is a rapper. He's a German hip hop artist and songwriter named Sarah Finale. And he's very successful, as you saw in my video. He's sold many records. Has gold and platinum albums. He's worked with many major artists in Germany, and so it was their process of translating the show. And of course, when they first met Lin Miranda and approached him with the first translations, the first few songs, Lin Miranda was shocked on how good it was. He was shocked on how well he liked it, because to translate a musical from English into another language is difficult enough. But then when most of the lyrics are hip hop, that's a totally different thing, because not only there are three things that you have to consider when you translate a musical. The most important thing is that the people can understand it. It also has to match the intention of the original piece. And that's what makes Hamilton in German so special, because sure, you could translate it word for word. You could do a complete one-to-one translation, but then it wouldn't work, because then it wouldn't rhyme anymore. It wouldn't fit the choreography. And if you've ever seen Hamilton, it's a show that's it's important that the words, the music, and the movement, they all synchronize, they all work together. If one doesn't work, then the other two fall apart. So it's very important that those things work. And so, to use the example that you gave, where he says, there's a million things I haven't done. Of course, in English, we all know what that means. And so in German, the translated line is, hab mir Millionen Dinge vorgenommen.
Yeah.
Literally translated, that means I have a million things, there are a million things I have yet to do.
Yes.
Okay, so the word structure is different, but the intention is exactly the same. There's a million things I haven't done, as opposed to there are a million things I have yet to do. So they mean the same thing, they're just said in different ways. And that's one of the message is the same. The words may not be the same, but the message is the same. Now, there are parts of the German translation that are one-to-one translations from the English. But just for the sake of the rhythmic structure, for what we call in hip hop the flow, so that all the words and the syllables match, you can never do a one-to-one translation, especially with a show like Hamilton. And as proof of that, if you've ever seen Hamilton on Disney Plus, it's been available for 2 years now on Disney Plus, try watching Hamilton with subtitles. And you'll see that the subtitles are one-to-one translations of what's being said in the show, but it absolutely doesn't rhyme. It means exactly the same thing as in English, but there's no flow, there's no structure. You could never dance to the subtitle version of the show, and you could never sing it. And so that was one of the things that the translators really had to work on, so that it all made sense, but it all sounded good. And keep in mind, the German translation, there are other translations of this show floating around out there. In fact, Lin Miranda himself was working on a Spanish version of Hamilton for many years. But the German translation team were simply first with their translation. The Spanish translation is still not finished. I know that there's a Dutch translation, there's a French translation, and there's an Italian translation. But the German translation was the first one, and it was the best one. because Germany has, and that's another very important point that I have to point out, Germany has a very rich hip hop culture. You would never think that about a country like Germany, but hip hop has been in Germany for 30 years. My first manager in Germany manages the most successful German hip hop group of all time, a group called the Fantastischen Vier. They are basically the pioneers of German hip hop, and they're still active to this day. So hip hop has been a part of the German pop culture for over 30 years. And so it makes sense that the first foreign language version of Hamilton be in German. Another point, Germany, or Hamburg, where I live now, is the third largest musical theater market in the world, behind Broadway and the London West End. There's Broadway, there's London, then there's Hamburg. So Germany has a very successful musical theater culture, and Hamburg is not the only city where musical theater happens. Where I live, I come from Stuttgart in the southern region of Germany, and that also has a very active musical theater scene. In Cologne, in Berlin, there are all these cities where musical theater happens. And so it makes sense that Hamilton would naturally come to Germany first. Plus my bosses, the producers at Stage Entertainment, this very large musical theater company, they saw Hamilton at premiere 2015, and they fell in love and immediately wanted to bring the show to Germany because they thought that it would be important. So language-wise, there are lots of things to consider when you translate a show like Hamilton into another language. And so not everything will rhyme perfectly, but it all makes sense in context of the show, and which is a very amazing thing when you consider, as I said in the video, the original Hamilton, the English version of Hamilton, has over 23,000 words. That's more words that's more words than in the typical musical theater production, okay? And the German version of Hamilton has even more words than the English version of Hamilton, but it still maintains the same rhythmic structure, the same rhymes, the same flow, the same syllables as in the English version. There are some places. Yeah, there are some places in the translation where we squeeze two words into one sentence or into one beat. And so that's the brilliance of this translation. It makes perfect sense. It doesn't say 100% the same thing, but that also is what makes it special, given that it's an American story and it's being played in this country. That's another thing we have to consider. Not every German is going to be interested in American history. So they had to write the show in a way that would also make sense for a German audience. So, for example, in the English version, there are lots of references to American hip hop. There are lots of quotes taken from American hip hop artists. Well, most Germans don't know these famous hip hop artists. So what the translators did was they used quotes from German hip hop artists and integrated them into the translation, and it is brilliant the way that they did it.
I was just thanking you because it's a fantastic answer, and also even more information that I needed. But I like the idea of squeezing and matching the beats. So the beats are important. That's what I.
Well, yeah, and if I may just add one more thing to that, and then we can move to the next question. Yeah. One of the beautiful things about the German language, I know it's funny, but a lot of Germans don't like their own language, maybe because of the history of Germany, and it sounds very harsh and very hard, but Germany is actually very well known for its poets and its authors. I mean, when you think of Goethe and Schiller and Thomas Mann and all of these very famous German writers, they all wrote in German. They didn't write in English. And the beautiful thing about German, as far as hip hop is concerned, is it's a very percussive language. Germany uses lots of consonants. It's a very consonant heavy language, which is perfect for hip hop. When I was learning the show, I was working with my phonetics teacher since January, teaching me how to say the words in proper German. I mean, I speak fluent German, but I speak with a Southern German dialect. And so when we do these shows, you have to speak what they call Hochdeutsch or proper German.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very difficult for me, first of all, to lose my Southern German accent, but also to lose some of the aspects of my English language, because English is a very vowel heavy language and German is a very consonant heavy language. So he gave me the best tip I've ever had when it comes to language. He said, think of, when you speak German in this show, think of beatboxing, and I'm a beatboxer. And when you beatbox, it's all consonants. Yeah. So if I do a beat like, that's all P, T, and K. That's it. Okay. So I had to really think about the percussiveness of the language. Just to give you an example, English German lesson. Take a very simple word, the word all, everyone, all. Yeah.
Old, like how old
all,
are you?
A-L-L. A-L-L.
All.
All. Yeah.
All.
In English, you say all, and the accent is on the A, on the all. In German, the same word, we have the same word in German, but they pronounce it all. So the accent is on the L's, not on the A. So all in English is pronounced all in German. It's a very simple example, but it also goes to show you what the challenges of bringing a show like this in this particular language. And it's not easy, but it's fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much. But maybe Charles, tell us how much time do we have left? I don't know
I have time.
Your schedule.
I'm here
today.
for you. I'm here for you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just we have time. So.
Okay. So Patricia, you're not going to ask a question. Maybe I don't know. Okay. So who's next? Who wants to ask? I don't know, Christian, if you want to add something.
Yes, I'm going to be selfish and say yes, I do have a question. Because I'm just very curious about your bilingualism, Charles, because you grew up in the United States, and so obviously I think you said until you were 9 years old, is that right, in the United States?
Yes, I spent my childhood, I was born and raised up until I would say up until 16 or 17. My dad did his first tour in his first duty in Germany back in the 70s. I was 9 years old when I came to Germany the first time, and I stayed there for 4 years, and then we moved back to America. And then in my junior year of high school, I moved back to Germany, and I just basically stayed. I graduated from high school in Germany. I studied in Germany, so I've been in Germany for a long time. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm curious, when you went back to Germany to finish your high school, how was your level of German at that moment? Like, was it very difficult for you as a kind of teenager to suddenly be, as a teenager, in a different language and like learning like school subjects in a different language?
Well, when you grow up in the U.S. military, I'm what's called an Army brat. That means I've lived in many different bases in different parts of the U.S. and in Germany. And when you live on a military base, you're basically in America. So I went to an American high school. And we all spoke English. I didn't actually learn German until I was 22 years old.
Wow.
Because I was out of school, I had finished my studies, and I was working as a musician. And I didn't live on the base anymore. I was by myself, and plus I met my former wife, and we raised a family. And but yeah, I didn't learn German. I didn't start learning German until I was in my early 20s. And German is a difficult language to learn at the beginning if you've never spoken any other language. I mean, like, as I said, I learned a bit of Spanish in high school, but Spanish is very easy compared to German, simply because the word order, the syntax. Because, for example, Germans, they tend to end their sentences with verbs, for example. Nicoletta brought
yeah,
he gave the example.
there's a meme on the internet of Kermit the Frog, and he's waiting for the verb when he's listening to German. Right? He's waiting for the verb at the end of the sentence.
Exactly, and that's exactly how German is. German, yeah, the verb usually comes at the end of the sentence in a lot of cases. And so it was difficult for me to wrap my head around that. And it took me, I'd say, a good 3 years before I could speak German well enough to have a conversation. There's a joke that German is a very easy language to learn if you're drunk. You just go into a bar and say, "Zwei Bier bitte," then you're good. That just means 2 beers, please. That's like the first German sentence that every American learns when they go to Germany. "Zwei Bier bitte," 2 beers, please. So so German is a difficult language to learn at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes very easy. Again, not just the vocabulary itself is not that difficult. It's just the syntax, the word order. You know, getting used to putting your verbs at the end, and Germans have very weird ways of forming sentences that is not very common in other languages. And those of you who are into languages, the irony of speaking English is that English is a Germanic language. Okay, so but they're just totally different things. And when you compare it to, for example, Dutch or Swedish or Danish, those are all, or the earlier Celtic languages, they're all Germanic languages. They're all related to each other, but they're so extremely, vastly different from each other, So it took a while for me, but eventually it came.
And like, I'm curious about, because obviously now, you've lived in Germany, I think you said, for 32 years.
32 years. Yeah.
Altogether, which I don't really understand how that's possible, because clearly you only look like you're 25 years old. So I don't know how you did all of these things in this time. But because I imagine that you spend most of your day speaking in German. So do you feel like you sometimes struggle with your English? Like, what is your balance of your languages in your mind?
That's a great question. I struggle with English when I visit my family in America. There are very many times where I want to explain something to them and I can't find the word in English, so I have to say it in German and then I have to retranslate it in English. That happens to me a lot. That's happened to me for many, many years. So yeah, it's sometimes it's a little bit of a, my brain kind of melts. I'm used to it now. But at the beginning, or like 10 years ago, it was a big problem, because I spent a lot of my time speaking German. And especially when I was teaching actively, all of my clients were German. All of my students spoke German, or had to speak German. Now, when I started teaching at university, because they all wrote songs in English, that made teaching in English easier, but even that was a little bit of a challenge, because sometimes I found myself speaking what we call Dinglish, Deutsch English, German and English. And I have 2 children. They're adults now. My daughter is 25, and my son is 23, and we grew up mixing the languages. So we spoke English and German mixed all the time. My daughter would say something. She would say something in English and then she would throw a German word in there, or she would say something in German and throw an English word in there. So it just became very confusing after a while. But my children always said, you know that dad is mad when he starts speaking German. So
I get that. I get that, right? It's I totally get that. That's very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
I was
And
wondering, sorry,
yes.
I was wondering if Christian, if maybe it happens to you as well, that when you go to Australia, you forget about that, maybe something, because you also have to speak in Spanish, you know?
Yeah. Just because I think everybody here knows, probably except for Charles, but I was born in Australia, but I haven't lived in Australia for 22 years. I live in Spain, and and yeah, so I have a similar problem sometimes, but not to a great extent, because my work is all in English, which is very different from your situation, Charles, right? Where you're working in German.
Well, I think nowadays my children actually have it a lot worse than I do when it comes to languages, because languages are a very big thing in my family. My former wife speaks 3 languages: English, German, and a little bit of Spanish. She learned Spanish in school. My daughter speaks English, German, Korean. She studied Korean studies, and she actually studied for a year in Korea. French and Turkish. My son speaks English, German, Japanese, and Norwegian. Yeah. So languages, and my current wife speaks English, German, and French. So yeah, so we're very much into languages in my atmosphere. So
wow. And so do you have any language learning advice, Charles?
Well, language learning advice, I think the best, one of the biggest, well, let me answer that question this way. One of the biggest regrets that I have is that I didn't continue to speak Spanish, because I love the Spanish language. I learned Spanish in school, but unfortunately I never had the opportunity to really use the Spanish that I learned, so I forgot it. So the best advice I can give when learning a new language is just keep speaking it. Consistency. It's just like when you do sports or when you're learning the lyrics to a song. The more you learn, the better it stays, what we call in musical theater, in your body. And it's one of those things that I'm finding out now with Hamilton, because we're so overwhelmed with the words that we have to sing. It's a show about words, and it's about language and about the power of language. And the best way is really to be consistent, to stick with it, to keep going, keep speaking. If you're trying to learn English as a second language, the best way to learn it is to speak it. So it's any opportunity that you have, speak the language. The reason my current wife speaks English so well is because she's very good at learning song lyrics. This woman has a memory for song lyrics, and I was like, you know that song? Really? It's crazy. And like really obscure hip hop songs and 80s rock ballads and stuff like that, and they're all in English. And that's how she learned English, is by learning songs. And so she just kept singing, and to this day, she just, when she hears a song that she really likes, she hears it 2 or 3 times, and then she can sing it, because she's just so used to her process of learning or of hearing these words. It gets into her body very quickly. So speak constantly, keep going, even when you don't feel like it. If you are struggling to explain something, because it's something that happens to everyone who learns a new language, if they can't explain it in the language that they're currently speaking, then they revert back to their native language, which is fine, which is perfectly fine. But then do your research, pull out your cell phone, look up the word and what it is in the language that you're trying to speak, and just keep going. That's the only way that I learned how to speak German fluently. Also, when you're around people who, Germans love speaking English. They can't do it very well, most of them, but they love it. And so in the circle of friends that I have, at the very beginning, all of my friends told me, please speak English with me, please speak English with me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to speak English with you. Speak German to me. So have your friends speak to you. Force them to speak to you in your language so that you can hear it, so that you can get used to it. That's pretty much all I can say, but those are tips that everyone should follow anyway. So
Sure, you know, but I think Charles, I think that your advice is great, and I think maybe you would be surprised at how many how much information there is on the internet from you know, from teachers and influencers, and who who uh, who who don't follow that very simple and obvious thinking. And it's a real shame, because there's many language learners who, you know, eventually they'll fail and give up because they don't just follow that kind of really simple advice, right?
yeah, and yeah, and that's a general problem with the internet. People do things on the internet not necessarily because they want to help people. They do it because they want the clicks or they want the likes,
Yeah, maybe.
which is fine. And they want, yeah, I mean, if you're an influencer on YouTube and you have a certain amount of people visiting your site all the time, you make lots of money from that. But that's why I think your circle of friends is very important. Groups like this, very important. But also just being consistent. Just as a little side note, regarding Hamilton, I think a third of the Hamilton Germany cast doesn't speak German,
Wow.
but they know the German lyrics
Wow, I'm shocked.
because of
Amazing.
consistency. We have a cast member from Denmark. We have 3 or 4 cast members from Italy. We have lots of cast members from the Netherlands. We have the lead actor. His name is Bené Montero. He plays Alexander Hamilton. He's from Brazil. He's a Brazilian. We have 4 Brazilians in the cast. We have 3 Brits in the cast. And like I said, a third of the cast, they don't speak German, but they had to learn German, well, enough German for the auditions, and now they have to sing these songs. I mean, like, again, there are 50 songs in Hamilton, and they've all been translated into German. And so even though they don't speak German on a conversational level, they want to learn simply because of the exposure that they've had to the language through Hamilton. So
Incredible.
consistency, sticking with it. Yeah.
Incredible. I don't know if someone else maybe would like to ask a question, but I would like to say something, right? Maybe, you know, what is that you are enjoying the most? You know, because I imagine that you are now through the rehearsals, right? Okay, so the process is on, you know, and when it's going to be released, okay, when it's on theaters, okay, so and what are you enjoying the most, you know, from this experience that you're having? Okay.
Thank you for that question. It's the process. I enjoy the rehearsal process. I enjoy working with this very international group of people. Lin-Miranda has said in many interviews that the German cast is the most international Hamilton cast there has ever been, just by the geography. We come from literally different parts of the world to do this show. The cultural background, learning, you know, meeting these new people, conversing with these new people. After our rehearsals yesterday, we had a huge barbecue at one of the actors' house, and again, English is the working language of this production. We're performing the show in German, but we communicate in English. We all speak English to each other, which is not uncommon in a artistic or creative setting, because English just happens to be the language of the arts nowadays, you know. Especially when you do these international productions, that is the common language that everyone knows. As was said before, English it's a world language. English is the most spoken language in the world. Now, in terms of population, literally Chinese is the most spoken indigenous language. But as far as people who speak more than one language, which many people do, English is the most spoken language. So it makes sense that language is used as to communicate in the arts. So, and I'm just enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the challenge of putting an amazing show like Hamilton in German. It's quite interesting, some of the choices that were made to tell the story. I think it's really brilliant, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in the cast, but also because I am a fan. I'm a huge Hamilton fan. I've seen Hamilton at least 200 times on Disney Plus. I've seen it once live on Broadway, and it was amazing. And the German version, our version of the show is it's gonna freak a lot of people out. And I'm just really honored to be a part of this history-making thing.
Yeah. And when is it going to be on theaters in Hamburg?
Hamilton our premiere is on the 6th of October. So we have a little over 7 weeks to prepare the show. We've been preparing since the middle of July. That's when we first started rehearsals. We're in our 5th week of rehearsals right now, and things are going along well. And our first preview show is on the 24th of September. And
my birthday!
Yay! Yeah, in musical theater, we usually have what's called preview shows. Before the premiere, it's open to the public, but a very limited number of seats are available. It's mostly for our purpose to see, to check technical things, to see if certain things work and if they don't, and if things need to be changed. So by the time we get to the premiere, then everything will be set. So yeah, the first preview show is the 24th of September, and the official premiere is the 6th of October, which is my mother's birthday, and I'm very happy about that.
You won't forget those.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bittersweet date because it's her birthday. My mother passed away in 2018.
Oh, dear.
And she was involved with the whole Hamilton process. Is from my end because my first audition.
You
for
said
Hamilton,
that on a video.
Yeah. So the fact that they moved the premiere to her birthday is just it's one of those fate things. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay, dear. I don't want to take too much of your time. All of you, talking all of you. I just want to know if someone would like to ask something, do it now or be quiet forever. Is it okay to do that? Forevermore, maybe?
That sounds creepy.
I translated from Spanish.
Yes. I think probably it would be the thing that they say at weddings, right? They say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Yes.
May I ask a quick question?
Please.
No, you can't. You can't.
No, please.
Yes, go.
Just one little question. It has nothing to do with Hamilton. Sorry, but anyways, you said that some of your hello,
Hi.
Charles. You said that your students used their recordings for video games, right? I'm just I'm just curious if you've ever been into video games yourself, and if you had that experience, what's your favorite video game? Yeah, I mean, just being curious.
Wow.
Okay. And one more thing to add. I really enjoy. I think that Hans Zimmer. I don't know if I pronounce it right because I don't know German. But Hans Zimmer, his music is used a lot in video games, and he's from Germany. Do you know anything about his music, and that his music actually is used in video games? So yeah, there's two quick questions about video games.
I don't know. Thank you for your question. That's actually a very cool question because I'm like I'm an OG video game player. I bought my first video game. My first video game was Pong back in the 70s. And so I've been playing video games all my life. I'm not so active now because I don't have the time.
Yeah.
I do a lot of mobile gaming. I play on my phone or on my pad. I used to, I'm an OG gamer. I used to, Sega Genesis,
Oh yeah.
Nintendo
You
64.
can now believe
You ever
he
had
is not a
Atari
teenager.
2600?
I had an Atari 2600, had every
Yeah.
game available. So when a company a few years ago came out with an iPhone app that had basically every Atari 2600 game ever made. And of course I downloaded it. So so I had to have that. My son, I played video games with him for a while. He's a big PlayStation. He has a PlayStation, PS5 and new Xbox. And he's into games again, because I don't have the time. I don't play as much as I used to. My favorite game was and still is Mortal Kombat. I love fighting games. For Mortal Kombat and Tekken and all that stuff. I'm a huge the new
Great
Final
choice.
Fantasy is just crazy for me. I just love that.
Great
So
choice.
yeah, I'm very much into games. Unfortunately, I don't have time to
Yeah,
play.
that's the problem, the time. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, my dear friends. Can I ask you, Charles, if you would be, maybe available for us, maybe let's see, 6 months or 4 months ahead, or maybe in the near future, can you do the same, that maybe after, the release of the musical, do you think that you can come back and tell us then how are you in that moment? How will be, the new Charles after doing everything, So do you want to
Absolutely.
return? Do you want to come back? I mean,
Sure,
and
of
talk with us?
course. If people have questions they want to ask, if they're interested in what I have to say, I'd love to. Right now we're in the rehearsal period, so I have Sundays off, but we rehearse from Monday to Saturday.
Yeah.
And after October, my weekends are no longer free because we play 8 shows per week, and that
Oh
means
my
we play.
dear.
Yeah, we play
8
on Saturday.
shows
Yeah,
per
8
week.
shows per week. I have to sing 8 days, 8 times a week. We
One
have
day is
double
going to be
shows.
twice.
Yes, Saturdays and Sundays we do double shows. I play in the afternoon and in the evening. And Hamilton is a long show. It's almost 3 hours long. So yeah, it's a lot of singing. But yeah, that's when so my weekends are basically the days I have to work the most. But usually in this
Are you
theater
okay with it? Yeah, you're going
Absolutely.
to say,
I'm a
no,
lot.
I am going to quit.
No, I'm perfectly fine with it. That's first of all, I make a lot of money doing it, and which
Oh
also
my
helps.
God.
Which helps a lot, and I genuinely enjoy the work. I never in my life thought that I would be doing musical theater, but now that I am, I love it. This is vacation for me. I really enjoy singing. I really enjoy being on stage and wearing those costumes, and I always make the joke. I'm a big fan of Prince. I was a very huge Prince fan when I was a child. I used to be a Prince imitator when I was like 13, 14 years old. I had very long hair, if you can imagine that. And I wore, like the Purple Rain era, I wore the clothes with the shirts and the jacket and all that crazy stuff. And now, fast forward, 40 years later, I'm getting paid a large sum of money to dress just like that again. And that's awesome. So it's really cool. So I really am enjoying myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'd
you
love
will be
to
a
come
great
back. Absolutely.
Washington.
Thank you.
You'll be a
I'm
great
looking-
Washington. I imagine you'll be a great Washington, because that is a role that you're going to play, right?
Yes. Again, I'm playing George Washington, and I'm the first person to play George Washington in a non-English production of Hamilton ever.
That's a record.
Again, just to be very clear, this German version of Hamilton, this is history making, because we're the first. We're the first ones to do this show in a language that is not English, and I'm the first George Washington. And I would
My
rather be the
dear.
first George Washington in German than to be like the 20th George Washington in English. So
The father of the nation. How do we call
yeah, the
George
father of the
Washington?
country, yes.
The
The
country.
very first,
Okay.
the very first president. He led the Americans, the revolutionary soldiers during the war. And there's actually a very, just if I may real quick, there's a very interesting part of American history that I always figured would be interesting for Germans, because Germans love history.
Yeah.
And the most interesting fact about my country, about the American Revolution, is that in the show, we talk a lot about the French contribution to the American Revolution. You know, the French helped America become America. They gave us money, they gave us weapons, you know, they gave us ships. But it was a German who taught the American soldiers how to fight. And without this German soldier, his name was Friedrich von Steuben. He was a German nobleman and a soldier, an officer, and he came to America to work as a soldier. And he was the one who taught the Americans how to fight the British. But his story wasn't mentioned in the musical Hamilton because of storytelling reasons, continuity reasons. But I always thought that that was a very interesting fact to tell German audiences. So when I give my interviews and do my weekly Instagram chat, that's one of those things that I like to talk about. I love history. I love politics and I love history. I'm very interested in that. So if those of you who might be interested, you know, every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock my time, Central European time, on Instagram, I give this little live chat where I talk about Hamilton and tell them everything about what's going on in the rehearsals and about the show. And so if any of you have time or are on Instagram at all, then I would love to see you. And
You have
I
these
answer a
lives
lot of
there.
questions.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I answer a lot of questions, and yeah, we have a good time. So, and there's also in September, there's a podcast called the Hamilcast. It's out of New York, and it's available on Spotify and on Apple Music and other places where you can get podcasts. And I did an interview there recently, and the episode with my interview is going to be released in September. And it's very cool because it's like one of the coolest Hamilton related podcasts on the internet. Lin Miranda, the creator of Hamilton, has been on the show like 4 times. So it's a very cool thing. And they talk about Hamilton and also about, you know, entertainment business and politics and things like that. And it's a lot of fun. So
Please repeat the name of the podcast.
The podcast is called the Hamilcast.
Hamilcast.
Yeah, Hamilcast. Yeah, Hamilton podcast, Hamilcast.
Just to share it, okay.
Yeah, and you can find it on any of the podcast platforms, mostly Spotify and Apple Music.
Okay, Charles, thank you very much. You know, this is the first. This is our first special guest meeting here in, you know, inside the academy, right? On the chat box, you've been on the chat box before, but this is like a, you know, a very nice thing because I saw the people so interested, you know, in what you're doing and engage with this. So I think that this is like a gift or a present or something nice for them. Okay, so thank you very much. You're so generous sharing.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
I don't know,
Christian,
maybe you want to say the last word.
Yes, just a very huge thanks because obviously you have a lot of commitments. You're a very busy man, and we, you know, the most precious thing in life is time, and we appreciate you sharing your time with us, though. So really, thank you. Yes. My
pleasure, and it was an honor for me to be here with you. And when I have the time, if you want to have me, I'm available. I'll make the time for you. As you said, time is precious, but it's only precious if you spend it doing good things. So
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, thank you all. So bad, the ones who kept quiet. So bad. We will talk about this later.
Thank
We'll
you.
have another chance. We'll have another chance.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Okay. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Charles.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye,
All right.
everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.